let's look at how we would solve a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. And so the quadratic formula is used to solve equations that are in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Here a, b, and c would all be real numbers. And the quadratic formula would say that our x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. If you're in Math 1314 on the comp exam, this will be one of the two formulas that would be on the exam, partially on the exam. In other words, it'll have only the right-hand side. It won't show the x equals, and it won't be next to the problem that you need to use it for. You'll just need to know that this is what you use when you're working the problem that says solve by quadratic formula. So let's proceed to solve this problem. There's three different things that may end up happening when you're solving these, so we'll work three different examples so we can look at all the different things that might occur when we're working one of these problems, what the answers might look like. So we first need to start by picking out our a, b, and c so that we'll have something to plug in over here. So our a in this example would equal 2, our b would equal negative 7, and our c would equal negative 15. So let's go ahead and rewrite the formula. It's a good idea to rewrite it, especially the first few times until you've got it memorized. Even though it's going to be on there, it's just a good idea to have it memorized because you'll run into problems where you need to use that formula when you're doing your homework. So x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. Very important that this fraction bar goes across all of that. So let's fill in what we have for those variables now. So we're going to have, let's just come down here and do it. We're going to have negative b, and b is a negative 7, so I'm going to put that negative 7 inside parentheses so I don't mess up my signs here. Plus or minus the square root of negative 7 getting squared. Put the negative 7 in parentheses to make sure you square the negative and the 7. Minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 15. I seem to have not let my radical go far enough, so I'll move it on down to go over all of that since it's supposed to. All over 2 times a, which is 2. So now that's going to equal this negative 7 turns into a positive 7 plus or minus the square root. So this plus or minus symbol says that there's two different answers. One answer that we get when we use a plus here, and then another answer that we would get when we use a minus here. We'll worry about that detail more later. Inside the radical, we're going to have negative 7 getting squared, which will be positive 49. Here's a place where people make mistakes. If you ever end up with a negative right here in this first spot, you forgot to square your negative over here. Let's continue. So we have a negative 4 times 2, that's minus 8, times negative 15. So negative times negative is going to turn positive. So plus 120 all over 2 times 2 gives us 4. Now we'll continue simplifying. We need to add what's inside our radical. So that's going to give us, so technically x equals this. X equals 7 plus or minus the square root. When we add 49 to 120, we get 169 all over 4. Now we know the square root of 169, or hopefully we do. If we don't, we can use our calculator to find it. Put in square root 169. And so we're going to have 7 plus or minus, square root of 169 is 13, plus or minus 13 over 4. Now it's time to figure out the answers that we have. So when we got to this step, the radical is gone now since we could find the square root of 169 and it worked out to be a nice integer for us. Then now we can find the two different answers. Let's first find the answer we would get if we use the plus in between the 7 and the 13. So 7 plus 13 would give us 20. 7 plus 13 divided by 4 would give us 20 over 4. I'm saying divided by because remember fractions imply division. So it's 20 divided by 4 which simplifies down to 5. So here's one of my answers. The other answer I get when I use the minus between the 7 and the 13. So 7 minus 13 over 4 is going to be negative 6 over 4, which means negative 6 divided by 4. But let's go ahead and simplify that, because 2 goes into negative 6, 2 goes into 4. This simplifies down to negative 3 over 2. So my two answers are negative 3 over 2 and 5. And I will put those in braces, because this is how we hold on to our set of answers. In math, we use braces to contain the set of answers that are going to make this true. I'll do a couple more examples in other videos.